Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Kepler College Open House, where we hope we'll be able to answer any of the questions that you might have. We're going to talk about all of the reasons that you might decide to pursue an education with Kepler College, and I invite any of my fellow participants here to chime in if we've missed anything. One of the things that we think is super important is that we have small class sizes. So typically that means that we are not going over 30 students in a class. You're getting individual attention from your faculty advisors or TAs, if those are in the class as well. You're getting direct feedback on your assignments as you go through the weeks. And there's a live discussion forum for you to be able to engage with your fellow students. All of our classes are in real time. I shouldn't say all. There's a couple that are what we would call self-paced that you can round out your education with, but almost all of our classes are in real time. So you're able to have all of your questions answered as you're going through. And one of the biggest things I think that we have as an advantage in our college is that we have multiple instructors. So as you're working your way through our diploma, you are going to have a different instructor for each class that you have. And that's very, very intentional, so that you are learning from a whole bunch of different fields of view. I don't know if any of the rest of you want to chime in on that idea, but
that's a strong point, because, sometimes if one person has a school, you're really only learning from one person and you're not getting multiple perspectives. Mm-hmm. So you sort of become a mimic of that person versus seeing who you might resonate with.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Which is not to diminish any of those great schools out there who are run by a single person, but it is a singular perspective. So you're getting all kinds of viewpoints. Of course, Kepler College was at one point an academic college, and we still have a little bit of that model with us. So we're really trying to help you to develop your critical thinking skills. There is a real focus on making sure that your assignments are strong, that you're ready to go to the next level before you go on, and that you have developed those critical thinking skills. We also have, for those of you who are more advanced, we have professional development courses that will help you to build your astrological practice. All of our classes are indeed recorded, and you are able to access those recordings for up to 3 years. So I think there's somebody else who had asked in the chat if this was being recorded, and yes, it is, and it will be available on YouTube afterwards, so you can look for it there. And that is the bulk of it. There are some classes that you don't have to attend live if you live in a different time zone, and you can just go through and do your assignments and just have engagement with your instructor via email, etc. But there certainly is a requirement in some of the classes that you are able to attend live. Kepler College is aligned with a couple of organizations. One of them is the AFA, and when you have a diploma from Kepler College, you automatically are getting a membership with the AFA. So we have a couple of diplomas. So depending on the level, you are either going to have an advanced membership or a professional membership automatically with AFA. Similar with NCGR. When you're finished your diploma, you are considered to be an equivalent of an NCGR level 3. They don't give you the level 3 certificate, but all you need to do is finish that level 4 part, and you will have your level 4 certificate. So they recognize in these two organizations the parallels. The education that we provide is similar to what they are providing, and they recognize those parallels and will grant you those automatic.
Donna, for those who don't know, what is AFA and NCGR?
Well, that's an excellent question. So AFA is the American Federation of Astrologers, and it is, it's one of the longer standing organizations in the astrology world. They have conferences, I think they're one of the only organizations that also has like their own office and library, as far as I know. NCGR stands for the National Council for Geocosmic Research. And it's one of our organizations, another longstanding organization that does have, they also have conferences and magazines and all kinds of things in their membership. And they also have levels that they teach, but you can test out of those as well. I don't know if you'd have anything that you'd want to add to those, but that was a good point, Jen.
There's a couple of questions in the chat. One is, do we have to take an exam to know what level to begin? And a sort of a similar question is, I applied for the synthesis course and was wondering what are the procedures and requirements to get the certificate without going through fundamental levels, since I already have that knowledge.
Okay, well, we will get to those questions as we go through the slides. We've got a couple of places where we'll give you advice on how to do that. Our fundamentals certificate is 30 weeks of teaching, the basic fundamentals. And that is 101 is the introduction to astrology that Vanessa and I teach together. 102, fundamentals, interpretation essentials. Carol Tebbs, who is here with us now, teaches that class along with Lori Waters and Enid Newberg. And 103, of course, as we mentioned, Jen Zart is our teacher there, and that's beyond the basics, where you're adding in a lot of additional information beyond. 101 is like planet science, houses, aspects. When you get into 102, Carol, do you want to talk about 102? Tell us what you learn in 102.
It carries on the basics, and it goes into the nuances of personalizing the chart, and accidental dignities, in all sorts of other tools. And some of the things that are on the list, amazing, anywhere from theoretical lineages of, the historical pattern of what we've done, up to derivative houses, which is, our students enjoyed that. That was kind of a fun closing.
Yeah, and moon phases are discussed in 102.
Moon phases.
There's a number of different topics that take you beyond 101, the basics, and starting to do a little bit more interpretation. Jen, do you want to tell us all about 103?
Yeah, 103 has all the fun stuff, and it's like you looking at your chart with a bit of astronomy mixed in, so you can start to actually place and ground it a little more with something called declination, which is when the planets go above or below the band of the zodiac. And so you kind of get a more like grab bag of, I call it like the Mary Poppins experience, because you're just going to get all kinds of tools that you can add. But, in a way, you'll start to find like, oh, I really like looking at the way two planets come together here, and that's called a midpoint. So we go over all these little like nuances and kind of polish your acumen for interpretation with the basis of 101 and 102. So we take it just that little extra.
Mm-hmm. So those 3 classes, that's 30 weeks of teaching, form the fundamentals certificate. And then if you want to go on and take your advanced certificate, then you would take 104, and that's a practicum. And so in 104, you're being introduced to a few different ways that you might be able to read a chart. There's guest instructors that come in and demonstrate what they do. And then you're pulling all those pieces together and demonstrating how what you have learned in the previous 3 classes, and your ability to read a chart is really fleshed out in that 104 class. The fundamental certificate is a requirement for the diploma. However, if you already have a pretty strong background in astrology, you can test your knowledge by going to our website and taking a quiz that we have it's a placement quiz, and it'll tell you what level that you're at. And I don't know if, Jeannie, could you pop maybe the access to that in the chat so that people can connect themselves there? So it'll give you some idea of where you're at. There's a few different ways that you can get in. So one of them, of course, is to take the quiz, see where you need to be placed, and then you can go in from there. Or I would say or. Take the quiz, and then if you find that you already have what you need to do the fundamentals and you want to work towards a diploma, then you can test out of 101, 102, or 103 actually. And you can test out of these classes if they are prerequisites that you want to take for another class that might need a basic astrology. You can't test out of these 3 classes and end up with a certificate without having any of our instructors having seen you or met you. So you might want to take 104 in that case to get your extended certificate, so that you can actually gain your certificate and work your way through the diploma. But you can start at any one of these levels if you have tested out of the exam that acknowledges that you've gained enough education to work your way through.
That really, Donna, applies to a lot of astrologers who have already maybe started their practice and they want to get a Kepler diploma, so they can test out that way.
Yeah, if you've gained your education someplace else and you want to transfer over, that's something else that we can look at. Our next certificate, and I would think the next logical place to go if you were on your journey, you would take all of the fundamentals to start with and then likely move into predictive tracks. And so we have a prediction certificate that is also a requirement for the diploma. So it starts with the 3 basic classes of transits, progressions, and solar returns. Those are required. And then you have to take either rectification or applied forecasting. That's another practicum. And then on top of that, you need to take 2 of any of these other courses that are listed here. Working with the moon. Oh, I see something is in there twice.
Is it supposed to be the advanced progressions class?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see that's another one that Jen teaches. Zodiacal releasing is in there. Mundane astrology. There's a couple of mundane astrologies in there too. One of them is specifically for elections. That'll be coming up. It's only offered once every 4 years. Horary astrology and mundane astrology. So there's options in terms of which classes you need to take to finish out that certificate. And again, 30 weeks of predictive classes are required in order for you to earn your diploma. So this is what the diploma looks like. You need to have 40 weeks in the fundamental certificate, plus 30 weeks of prediction that we just talked about. And in addition, 10 weeks of chart calculation. This is where you're drawing a chart by hand. And you don't have to have any experience to take this course. You don't have to be an astrologer at all to take this course, actually. You can come in at any level with chart calculation. It's one of the classes that I think we hear people worrying about because it sounds like, oh my gosh, it's all mathy. But really, it's fairly basic math. There's some formulas in there that I wouldn't even say you have to memorize them. You have to be able to apply them, but they're very, very simple. It's just the ability to move from a 10-point system to a 6-point system. It's not complicated math. And chart calculation, I think a lot of people are like, why do we even need to do that now that we've got computers that can calculate all of that for us? But I think that anybody who's gone through this class would be able to verify that once they have taken the class, it really grounds the knowledge in for you, the astronomy of how it is that the planets are moving, understanding really not just the movement of the planets, but the greater circles in a bigger way, that it really grounds your education. Now, Vanessa, you've gone through this certificate. What would you say about chart calculation and in terms of how it enhanced your education?
I think it's a big deal. I think that chart calculation gives you a much better understanding of how fast things are moving, where they are. I don't know. it changes from being just a bunch of symbols in a circle to having meaning in a
Yeah.
different level. I found it incredibly helpful. And if you're afraid of math, don't worry about that.
Yeah, for sure. You also have to have 10 weeks of astrological history and 10 weeks of astronomy for astrologers. Those two courses also, you can join in at any time. You don't have to have a background in astrology to appreciate those. And we really solidly believe that these two courses are really important in terms of the education. Again, you might think, well, I can read a chart without understanding these things. And that's true. You can read a chart with understanding these things, but your understanding of the background and the lineage is really going to strengthen you as an astrologer. Jen, you look like you've got something to say about that.
Well, it just make it like I'll sort of paraphrase Rob Hand in a way, because he'll say, for example, like wrong charts can work, but he's never seen a wrong chart work better than a right one. If you know your astronomy and your history, your ability to interpret the chart will be way better. It's just like hard to put any other way. I'm super excited about it. But if you know the astronomy, your ability to interpret the symbol of an astrology factor is going to deepen, because there's an immediate relationship between those two things and how the meaning was created in the first place. And the meaning doesn't stay stable as if it was just born in Mesopotamia and then we're doing it now. So you need to know the history of like how different cultures have interpreted it. So anyway, I'm just a big fan of both of those things.
Yeah. And if you missed our Astrology Day presentation, Jen was presenting a portion of that on the history of astrology. So check that out on our YouTube channel if you missed it.
Donna, can you put the link to the placement quiz to everyone? I only have the ability to go to panelists, so I just sent it to you.
Oh, okay. Let me just see. Jeannie, I think it's because you're not a co-host, so I'll just make you a co-host. And then we also need 10 weeks of consulting skills or counseling. We've got 2 courses that you could take, one or the other would round out that requirement. And of course, and this is for somebody who is looking to be a consulting astrologer, obviously. So that is a requirement. But I think even if you are looking to be another type of astrologer, a research astrologer, the ability to deal with people is still going to be important if you're going to be a horary astrologer. It doesn't matter which direction you're going to go. This is an important class for anyone who is meeting with people. We ask you to have 5 weeks of ethics training. And then you get to choose. We've got a whole bunch of classes to choose from, and you can choose 15 weeks of electives. Then at the very end, we would ask a demonstration of learning. And Alex, do you want to talk about that demonstration of learning?
Thank you very much. I was waiting for my moment. So when I first became director of education, last September was the first round of our final papers that we received. And what I noticed, and what everybody else seemed to notice, is the huge discrepancy between the standards. So I think one of the first things I needed to do was standardize that final paper, so that way everyone knows what to expect. And that's now been done. So the way it's structured is you get a little bit of research techniques all the way through the 5 weeks you're going to be taking it. So you get a bit of a shot at qualitative analysis, which is looking at numbers, quantitative, which is looking at surveys, interviews and things like that. The third one is a historical way of looking at how to do research there. The fourth way is action-based research, which I'll be taking on because that's a lot of the work that I've done with astrology and education. And the fifth week is just generally going to be, what do you want to do? Tell us, how you want to go about this. You're going to choose one of those research techniques and take it to a 3,000 to 4,000 word paper. And I still have high hopes that we can get our academic status back, which is one of the reasons why I felt it was so important that we standardize our final paper. And if you do want to go on to further education, Nick Campion will also be sharing with what the MA in Cultural Astrology and Astronomy expects. And that way, when you finish your studies with Kepler, you're not going, now what do I do? I got all this knowledge. I want to learn more. Where do I go? you'll be ready with that final paper that you can take to Nick Camping. This is what I did for Kepler College, and Nick Camping is well aware what I'm up to. And so he's on side too. So it's a very exciting phase, I think, for Kepler College and our demonstration of learning.
Yeah. And you don't have to just stick with a paper. We also have at the end of each term what we call a student showcase. And this is an opportunity for any of our students to present a webinar. So you could do that as an alternative. You could present, it's not your own webinar. You're part of this showcase. We'd have a bunch of speakers back to back, and you can present, you'd still have to write something on it. Obviously, you can't do a webinar presentation without having prepared something, but you can present a live presentation as well.
And actually, we'd appreciate if you would like to do a written paper, but would like to do the experience of doing a webinar. That would be pretty good too, because our webinars are posted on YouTube. A lot of people are going to see them. It's a really important first step, I think, for astrologers who want to get on a lecture circuit. And just to say too, with the webinar for the student showcase, we do expect a high standard of research as well for that.
Great, thank you, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
Now, once you finish that, that's 130 weeks of study. And when we say weeks of study, we're talking about classes. We've got 10-week classes, as you've seen, and 5-week classes. Each of these classes is 2 hours long. On top of that 2 hours each of sitting in class time, we anticipate that you'll spend between 8 to 10 hours a week per class doing your additional readings and doing your homework and participating in the discussion forums, things like that. So it's 2 hours of lecture time per week. So you're talking about 10 hours of lecture time on top of the additional work that you need to do. When you finish your regular diploma, then you'd go on to the advanced diploma. And this would require an additional 5 weeks of horary, 5 weeks essential dignities, mundane, 5 weeks of professional development. You can take whichever class that you want. And 5 weeks of rectification or the natal practicum, whichever one you didn't do in your movement practicum, your movement certificate, and then 5 weeks of research. And then we would ask that you concentrate a study, you take 30 weeks, so you get a certificate in any one of these targeted areas. Now, of course, if you've already taken some of the classes that belong here, you'd want to round that out. We can help you go back and take some different electives if you want to, so that you're ending up with this full 190 weeks of study to complete the advanced diploma.
I might add, Donna, for this portion, the rectification search is the 24-hour search.
That's right.
Donna, do people enroll in more than one class at the same time, or is this consecutive? Like, it's better to just take 5 weeks of essential dignity and then take the next class in the next term? Or do people kind of treat it like I'm going to take 3 classes from Kepler this term and they're just going all in like a full-time student?
We have had people that come in as full-time students who were able to complete the diploma in a couple of years. Typically, we would say if you take 1 class per term, you're going to complete the diploma in 4 years. But when you do take multiple classes, you're not going to take every class in the fundamental certificate at the same time, for example. But you could take fundamentals and chart calculation at the same time, or some of the other ones that we talked about back here, where you could take history, you could take astronomy. Things like that, where you don't have to have any prerequisites. You can take multiple classes at once. And of course, when you get past the fundamentals, you can take any of the movement classes. There is some order to it, because you're not going to do your practicum before you've done any of your classes, but there's not a required order. So that's a great question, Jen. Yeah, you can take multiple classes at once, but they need to kind of make sense. And so here you'd want to probably meet with one of the faculty members, or, talk to Alex or myself or Vanessa, anyone on the admin council, any of the people in the beginner in the fundamentals certificate that would help to guide you on the path that you want to take if you wanted to double up? Great question.
I'd love to add something to that, which is these classes are pretty robust. And so I went through the entire program, and there were a couple of terms when I doubled up, and I was only successful in that a couple of times. And there were a few times that I actually had to postpone the second class I took and put it into a future term, because not to intimidate anybody, but there's a significant amount of work expected for each one of these weeks. And like Donna said, if you were going to double up, you would have to be pretty considered about what two classes you were pairing.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, we have had people take multiple courses, sign up for multiple courses. They're all excited. And if you're not able to give the attention, if we're saying 8 to 10 hours a week per course, and you sign up for 4 courses, so expect 40 hours of work. So now it's a full-time job. If you're willing to make it a full-time job, then that's fine, but you need to be prepared for that. Like, you're not going to become a good astrologer if you're only showing up to the classes, unless you have a photographic memory error.
Yes, and a lot of our electives are 5 weeks, so you could ladder them. First 5 weeks, one class, another 5 weeks, and another, so you can still get in 10 weeks a term.
Yeah, that's right. Were you going to say something else, Jen? You looked like you were prepared to. All right. So are there any questions around this? Because I'm going to move on to what we're offering this term. If not, I'm just going to check the Q&A here.
Yeah, there's a couple of Q&As here, Donna, to cover before we move on.
Okay. I think I've answered that question about how do you get a certificate without going through the fundamentals levels. So if you wanted to take the movement certificate, again, you could go through the quiz. If you just wanted to jump into some of the predictive classes, that's fine. Or any of the other classes that have a prerequisite. So you can test out of those courses. If you're working on a diploma, you have to test out of those questions. Just going out of those courses, just going through the quizzes isn't going to be enough. You actually have to test out. But there are, depending on where you received your education, there are some parallels that we honor. So if you've taken your education at an institution that we would recognize as having some parallel, and you can just reach out to us and ask us whether your school would qualify, then that would be fine. It does have to be a place where there was some sort of rigor to the learning. So you have to have had testing, things like that. If you just took a bunch of workshops, that's not going to qualify unless you do a test out. I'm just reading some of the questions here. Is there any open class I can attend to sample the fundamentals certificate? Not open classes, but if you have a look at the quiz, you'll get some idea of what kinds of things you need to do to move on. And yes, we do have a YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and look for Kepler College, you can see a whole bunch of things that have been taught by members of our faculty, and well as other people that are available to you to see what's kind of going on.
And there's a few YouTubes that actually, Donna, you and I have done to talk about and flesh out some of the concepts that are covered in 101. So if you look for us on the Kepler channel, you will get a little taste.
Someone is asking if we have a tutor for the program. I mean, our faculty members, depending on the class that you've signed up for. If you sign up for 101, for example, if you're starting at the beginning, Vanessa and I are faculty members, and we have a TA. Each week, we also have, on top of class time, additional labs. So 1 hour of a live lab that you can attend and have all of your questions answered with other students, of course. And But so we don't have necessarily one-on-one tutors, although we could try and pair you up with a graduate if that was something that you were interested in, or a more advanced student. We don't have a tutoring program at the moment, but in most of the fundamental classes, there is an opportunity for you to meet after the class at another time to work on things that you missed during the class.
Can you talk about the videos that they have access?
The videos of what, Carol?
In the courses that they take.
Of the classes, you mean?
Yes, when
Yeah.
they're in.
Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. So
Okay,
in all
I'm
of
sorry.
the classes, you do have access to the video of the class for up to 3 years, in fact. There's a question here about specializing in astrology. What specialization of astrology does the diploma cover? So really the diploma is a natal astrology diploma. So if you're interested in taking medical, that's another diploma that we're working on right now. Or just even the medical certificate, that's where we're starting with the medical certificate, but it is going to be expanded to a larger diploma. The basic requirement for that is that you would have all of the, the fundamentals of astrology. We are working on a placement quiz for the medical astrology one on its own. So you wouldn't necessarily need to go through all of those steps. That's not in place just yet, but it is coming. Evolutionary astrology is not something at the moment that we offer, but we're working on it. So that's another one where you'd want to have the basics. These individual certificates are not going to teach you the basics of astrology. And it's kind of a mistake that some people make. If you wanted to take astro mapping, for example, you can't go into a certificate like that without having your basics. So even though you can get that certificate without taking the fundamentals courses, you don't want to sign up for it unless you have fundamentals. I hope that answered the question. Okay, I think I've answered the questions, all of the ones there. I've done classes at other schools, but would like to study some of your diploma classes and also astronomy. You can sign up for anything. We have no problem putting people into any class that they want to take. You're not going to get a certificate in that class or a diploma. You're not going to get a KeplerCollege diploma unless you've met all of our criteria, but you're welcome to take any classes if you have the required prerequisites, even from another school. I think that's answered a couple of classes here. Yeah, you can take a single class, you can complete an entire certificate without having the fundamentals, so that's not a problem. There's a question here. What classes are required to attend live? Somebody who's from Hong Kong. Now, we've had this because, of course, we appreciate the difference in the time zones. So if you want to reach out to us, we'll tell you specifically which classes that you really need to have real-time presence in. I mean, I can tell you just off the top of my head, you need to make a presence in, I think in 103, Jen, you need to have a presence, right? You need to do a live presentation at one point.
Yeah, and you also won't want to miss it. So it is a definite benefit. The transmission really benefits from you being there. There are certain classes that I wouldn't just watch the recordings of. Yeah.
Certainly the practicums you need to take in 104. That's considered a practicum. I'm just going to back up my slide here. 104 is a practicum, so you have to attend a practicum live. That's the whole point of a practicum. You wouldn't do nurses training without having attended live. It's a similar idea. You need to practice on live people. Oh, sorry, I've gone back too far. Flipping around here, flipsy-dipsying around. Applied forecasting is another practicum that you absolutely need to attend live. And counseling and consulting skills, for sure, you have to attend those live. And there might be others. There might be other classes because we've got some that are in development where the expectation from the instructor would be that you would attend live, or at the very minimum, submit a recording of a live presentation, something like that. I'm going to go back to the question about electives in a minute. There's a question about how much it costs to challenge the fundamentals courses, and that's a great question too. It costs $100 to challenge an exam. And if you pass, you move forward, no problem. If you look at the challenge exam, if you think, oh yeah, I can do that, and you purchase the challenge exam, and then you're like, oh, I think this is a little bit more than I thought. I think that I'd be better off taking the course. You can apply that $100 to the course. So if you decide you want to challenge the 101, you look at the exam and you're like, yeah, no, I can't do this. Just contact the registrar and she'll apply that cost to the course itself. Somebody is asking, written feedback on my written work is really important to me. And other schools have not been satisfied. They've not been satisfied with this. We do give written feedback on our assignments. Now, it's not all of our assignments because some of them are quizzes that you can just go through the quizzes and take. But most of our, especially in our fundamentals classes, you're getting lots of feedback. So certainly you don't have to worry about that. If you feel like you're not getting adequate feedback, you can just reach out to your faculty member.
Yeah, sorry, Donna, can I jump in there too? Yeah, I mean, if you have a problem with the amount of feedback that you've got, I mean, that's what I do. You know, it's part of the reason why I'm here too, in addition to your faculty member who's looking after you. So if you don't feel you're getting satisfaction, you can also ask me to have a double look, you know, another look at the feedback. And but we do our very best because we know how difficult it is to write these papers if it's new to you. What we don't do is we don't do a lot of correcting on your grammar. That's not our job, but we will definitely look at your astrological work and help you from there. Yeah, for sure. The fundamentals class is mainly focused on traditional astrology or modern, and the answer to that is yes. In 101, we do have we lean a little bit, I would say, towards traditional in that we start with teaching whole sign houses. We use traditional rulers. But we also are teaching modern techniques within that. So it's a little bit of both. And we try to identify all the way through. This is a traditional technique. This is a modern technique. This is where this might have come from. So all the way through the fundamental certificate, you're kind of learning both traditional and modern. So it's not like by the end of it, you're going to be a traditional astrologer, or by the end of it, you're going to be a evolutionary astrologer. We're not separating that out. So you're learning a bunch of different techniques. And if after you've finished your fundamental certificate, you want to go down those roads a little bit deeper, then you can do that. But whoops, doing this again. But we do try to bring in both ideas. We're not here to tell you which is the right astrology and which is the wrong astrology. When you go into 102, you're no longer going to be using whole sign houses, although I think you can. Is that right, Carol?
Yes,
you can if you
that's
want
correct.
to, but you're introduced to Placidus. You have to do a whole paper on and research on house systems to help you determine which house system you want to use. And so you have to make those decisions as you go along. And I'm going to say even in 101, we start to do this, where it's like, well, this astrologer would say you use this much of an orb, and this astrologer would say that much of an orb. You just need to practice and figure out for yourself what you're going to do. Although obviously, if we have quizzes, we're going to tell you what you're going to use in order to get those quizzes right.
May I add to what you're saying, Donna?
Yeah.
Modern astrologers up until, you know, the 1990s, it was kind of created in whole cloth, but most all of the modern astrologers now have read the ancient texts that got put into English. And so now the modern astrologers of old now combine those traditional that traditional information into the modern techniques. So you need both.
Yeah.
Well, and to put another metaphor to it, it's like cooking school, right? You know your ingredients, you kind of get a sense of, you know, the salt, heat, acid, fat, like every little thing you need to be able to put into a really good dish and interpretation. If you don't know your ingredients, you don't know what you're cooking with, right? So Kepler sort of presents you with a lot of options of saying, okay, well, here's this factor, here's this factor, here's this factor. And then they guide you to that process of like finishing off a specific dish in one way. But if that's not your taste or your flavor, then at least you know where to go and what you don't like, you know? So it's kind of this well-rounded in that way.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. That was an excellent explanation of it. Now someone is asking here, if you have to miss a few classes, if you're going to go into the fundamentals and need to miss a few classes, it's fine. For most of the classes in the fundamentals in 101 and 102, if you can't attend live, it's not a problem. You're always going to get more out of attending live because you can have your questions answered. You're contributing to the class. You're always going to be a better student if you're attending live. And I think that I can say that without any hesitation, or at least if you're not attending live, that you're attending live labs if they're available. But they're not available for all the classes, but for certainly 101 and 102, there's additional labs that you can attend. And I think that that's super important. But if you miss a couple of classes here and there because of your work schedule, that's fine. Somebody is asking about the chart date for Kepler College. Carol, do you want to answer that question?
Say the question again.
What is the chart date for Kepler College? So many charts. I'm laughing because there's so many charts. Carol was here for part of that organization.
I'll tell you this, in the state of Washington, where we were at our birth, it goes back to which chart you're going to use. Is it when the state of Washington acknowledged us? Or is it the group that we're sitting in saying, oh, let's create a college?
Yeah. So we've got charts for, you know, when it was registered, when the first class was, when the first meeting was. There's a few different classes. So
they don't have the date. They don't have the time, excuse me, of the first meeting. Of the one they decided. Astrologers didn't think, oh, we better take down this time. They were so excited about doing the college.
Do we have courses in medical astrology? We do. Yeah, those are going to be starting this term, starting the spring term. Is that right, Jeannie? Pretty sure. Yeah, it'll be in this group of classes. And with that question, I'll go through now what we're offering this term. So here is our fundamentals. These 4 classes are basically offered 3 times a year. So not during the summertime, but every fall, winter, and spring, all 4 of these classes are offered. So you can follow through in that way. And then here's our medical astrology history and foundations, which is going to be taught by Lee Lehman and Will Morris. And this is really the beginning of the fundamental certificate that is going to be offered, which will incidentally lead into a full diploma in, it's not going to be called medical astrology. I think the working title is body, soul, spirit, but basically it is all things considered medical. We just don't want people to go away from that thinking that now they can practice medicine. So we have to be careful with the language. But yes, absolutely, we have that. Working with the Moon is a new class this term with Tara All and Ashwin Subramanya. And so we're really looking forward to that one. Carol is teaching applied rectification. This is the 24-hour search. Carol is an expert in rectification. And for those of you that don't know what rectification is, this is the practice of really, well, I'll let you tell what it is, Carol. That's your area.
Well, in the astrology community, a lot of astrologers call it the WRECK rectification. But it's simply aligning life events to appropriate astrological descriptors. And certainly you need a lot of biographical information from the client as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're constructing the chart backwards. And then, of course, we have Introduction to Counseling that, as we talked about, is a required course in the diploma, and a new class this term, Transits class, which is required for your predictive certificate and for the diploma. So those are some of our newer classes. And then here is Alex's class, Jupiter and Saturn, Cycles of Development. Do you want to talk about that class, Alex?
Sure. I mean, I was pretty convinced that a lot of astrologers don't know what to do with Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter, by its nature, expands everything it touches, whereas Saturn practices, hones, makes us work. But they have a cycle of development that is really quite easy to catch on to, and it's a really good tool to bring to clients, especially clients who have children. And I also I'm teaching the ethics of working with children's charts in a way that protects your practice. It keeps it nice and safe, because according to child protection guidelines, which are international, you should never have a child unsupervised in your office. The parent should be there, whether it's on Zoom or live. A parent should be present.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Maya White is going to be teaching the Psychology of Astrocartography, which is another new class for us this year because we've expanded our astro mapping certificate. So now we've got a number of options in that program. Astrology and Sacred Literature, another class that Carol teaches, which is an excellent, really interesting class. And again, this is not one that you need to have any background in astrology to study. That's right, Carol?
That's right. And I'm using Nick Campion's book as the beginning of it. But basically, throughout all of the sacred literature, there are references to astrological situations. And so I bring those forward. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. And Marie O'Neill, sorry about this. Oh, this is fancy. Marie O'Neill is doing Fundamentals of Life Coaching. Great course. This is the second time she's offered that one, and we had great feedback from the students who took it last year. Again, you can take this as an elective in your practice if you're working towards a diploma, but it works as a standalone course as well. Introduction to Astromythology with Inga Duncan Thornell. Another mythology, I think, is a really important study. This is another class that you don't have to have any fundamentals of astrology to take, but understanding mythology really goes a long way in terms of understanding astrology, because it certainly, those pieces are really tied together, I think, in just about any culture. The understanding of the planets is really linked to mythology.
And these are all 5-week classes.
These are all 5-week classes. Yes, thanks for pointing that out. Progressions in Solar Arcs with Joseph Crane, another really important. This is a required class in the diploma, and I think anybody who is studying astrology is going to want to understand progressions in solar arcs. There is a class in here. Is the Astro Mapping 1 going to be available? Astro Mapping 1 is actually going to be offered this term, but the class isn't available on the store yet. So you can watch for that. It will be added to this list right away. We just don't have it available at this moment. I think it's going to be offered the back half of the term. May 11th, I believe, will be the start date. So you can look for that if you've been waiting for that one. There are other electives that you can take that are not offered this term. And I'm going to pop a link when I finish this presentation to where you might find all of those electives. But you can click through on our website and be able to see our whole calendar, like for the whole year, what we intend on offering for the entire year. And it would be repeating year after year, although obviously things happen with instructors and things often need to change. So it's not carved in stone, but what's it carved in? It's carved in mud.
Which dries to stone, maybe.
It does. Eventually it dries to stone. When I finish, is it possible to be a teacher of Kepler College? I mean, anything is possible. Anything is possible. We obviously cannot promote every graduate to being a teacher of the college, but certainly many of our graduates have gone on to become TAs and like Vanessa, eventually an instructor. So there's always that possibility. Yeah.
And we have another one upcoming. Yes.
We have
So
a few. Yeah, we have a few of our graduates who have moved on to become TAs, and some of them are happy to stay as TAs, but there's always an opportunity. There's always an opportunity. If you excel, then there's an opportunity. And especially if you already have a teaching background, that makes a big difference.
I would like to add that I was a TA for several years before I was an instructor.
Yeah.
So not an immediate leap.
No. There's a question here in the free test. I passed some levels and then was informed that I also have to write an assignment. Don't remember us having that requirement in the free quiz, but Tamar, if you would like to reach out to the registrar, Jeannie had to step out, but if you could just email registrar, I'm going to type it in the chat at KeplerCollege.org. We will try and sort that out for you.
I think the fundamental challenge tests do not include an essay.
But this isn't the challenge. They're talking about the free test. So certainly there wouldn't be a requirement for an assignment in the free test, in the placement quiz. So that seems odd to me, but we'll sort that out for you for sure. If it is asking that, I think that is a mistake. Are most of our classes on the weekends? Yes, they are mostly on the weekends to accommodate multiple time zones, but there are occasional classes that are offered during the week when weekends just aren't going to work for the faculty advisors. So it does happen, but most of them are on the weekends. Certainly all the fundamentals are on the weekends. The classes take 2.5 years, at least 2.5 years to complete. But if you have to work full time and want to watch the videos, yeah, that's fine. You can still take the courses. But of course, as we talked about, for the places where you have to be there live, in the practicums, in the consulting skills, of course, you have to be there live. But you can, for most of the other classes, watching the videos and catching up is a possibility.
And that works for any time zone.
And if you do have a full-time job and are only able to take one class per term, it is going to take about 4 years, which is how long it took me.
Yeah, that's pretty average, actually. And I would say sometimes even longer, because if you need to take a term off because you are having a baby or moving, or, any number of things can pop up. I think actually very few people are finishing in 4 years. And some people just like to take the summer off. There's all kinds of reasons why you might extend that. So you don't have to finish in 4 years. You can finish in 5 or 6. At the moment, we don't have a cap on how long you can take to finish, but yeah, you really are going to be going at your own pace. And I think in some ways, not taking too many classes at once is really going to strengthen your education.
On the other hand, the key thing too is students that start in 101, they like to stay together, and almost all of them go to 102 as a group, and they all then like to go as a group to 103 and so forth. So you're building friends and connection with real people.
Yeah.
But it's a lifelong thing. I mean, I see some Kepler offerings, and I've been doing this for 27 years, and I'm like, I want to take that class. That looks so much fun. So, like we're never over, take your time too. It's good to marinate in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an excellent point, Jen. We talk about astrology. Astrology is a study. So it's not like when you're finished with your diploma, oh, now you're done. You're never done as an astrologer. Never.
It's a true commencement. It's like, oh, you've done that. You've commenced. Now begin. Now you have, another 20 years of continuing education, all the conferences and everything. And
exactly.
I
And
dropped
Kepler
in on,
keeps coming up with brand new classes. So I still take classes if there's something wonderful.
Yeah.
There's always something on the menu.
Exactly.
I dropped in on one of Donna's classes and you know, I mean, you know, I got various diplomas and things like that, but I learned a lot, you know. So just to back up what Donna and Jen said, it is a lifelong thing. You're never going to know everything. And we know we're offering Joy-Tish classes too. You know, I mean, there's tons to learn. There's always something. So my advice is just to, you know, enjoy the journey.
Donna, you
Yeah.
might mention the Toastmasters for people who.
Oh yeah, we're going to get there too, actually. It's in the
Okay.
presentation. I'm just going through there's just a whole bunch of questions that are in here still that I want to get through. I had a thought about one of them and now I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. Somebody is asking if there's a graduation ceremony and the honor of meeting the teachers. Our graduation ceremonies for the past 12 years, 11 years have all been online. They used to be live back when we were an academic institution, but they have all been online, and they will be online this year as well. We're hoping that can change. We don't want to make any promises, but we're hoping that can change. So if you sign up now, maybe by the time you graduate, you'll be able to graduate live, which would be really exciting. It's our dream. It's on our wish list.
Well, the last one was held at a UAC, and that's going to be coming up in 2026. So even if you graduate, you might not walk until the community gathers and can witness as a group.
Yeah, well, that one was the last of the degree program students in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we could still maybe have a Kepler graduation event at the next one. Even if it's not an academic program, it can still be an honorary.
That's right. Yeah. Somebody's asking about the first class, please. I mean, if you're talking about the fundamentals class, that's right here, beginning April 7th, so coming up soon. And the early bird discount is on until the end of next week. So you're still in time to get in on that. Can you enroll directly in level 3? Well, you can, but you are not going to succeed at that if you don't have the fundamentals. So if you have a background in astrology, and you want to take that placement quiz to see whether you can slide into 103, then you can do that. And you will not earn a certificate without at least testing out of 1 and 2. But yeah, you can take 103 if you have the background. I don't know, Jen, do you want to talk about what you think is necessary to take 103 if you're just interested in learning with Jen?
I think you should definitely have your, as Zip Dobbins called it, the astrological alphabet down, although I know we've gone beyond that as Carol spoke to it. But, you know, you just need to know the fundamentals, literally, the signs, the houses, the aspects, you know. You won't be able to play with the fun toys I'm going to bring you unless you have a knowledge of those types of basic element. Accidental dignity, that might sound fancy. If you don't know what it is, take fundamentals too. Right. So there's certain things that if you're looking at the list of what's in 103 and your eyes glaze over, you're not ready yet. If you're looking at it and you get excited because you're like, ooh, I've been wanting to know that, you're probably ready.
Yeah, great. Alex had talked about the graduate studies and that, no, we don't talk about any of that on our website, but Alex, maybe you could pop into the chat box a link to Nick's school, Nick Campion's school, for people that are interested in that.
Actually, their website just got redone by the university, and it was a very bad update. So I wouldn't link to it, but it's the Sophia Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the University of Wales.
Yes, it's external to KeplerCollege, just something extra to move on to. Once you finish, you don't know what else to do, and you're still keen for more. Nick Campion he is putting together something for the research class to tell you what's coming up. How to apply for the MA in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology. And I'm not sure if we're going to make that video available for everybody or just the research yet, but definitely you can find more information. But like Jen said, they just redid the website. I got a lot of stories about the MA. I did it, 2007 I finished. I hate to say that, it's so long ago, but it's a great course. And
It is.
we're working on towards, helping you to find your way there, which is why it's so important that we get our stuff right on this level too.
But there is a difference in Nick's program in that it's a master's degree in effectively an anthropology department. And so you won't be learning how to do practical astrological technique and interpretation.
That's right.
People who go to that program study astrology like anthropologists in the way of saying, how did this technique change over time? What's the history of this practice? They go into archaeoastronomy. I call it, oh, never mind. It's fun though. Like archaeoastronomy, you study all these rock formations and you look at the alignments with the sky and look at something called skyscape archaeology. So it's a lot more like heady, and it's not going to get you the nuts and bolts that Kepler is really in command of teaching. So if you want to become a practicing astrologer, you definitely want to stay around Kepler for a long time. If you want to be more academic, go to the MA program, but it won't necessarily enhance your counseling practice or your ability to interpret a chart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And just to add on top of that, that's why some of the research things I'm doing is to fill that gap in, so that you're using the nuts and bolts that you learn from Kepler College, and you're kind of able to find a pathway towards the research that the MA is going to require of you. But Jen is absolutely right. It's not a place to learn techniques or to learn how to be a good astrological counselor. We do that at Kepler.
Great. All right. Someone is asking, if I enroll in the astrocartography psychology, what level of astrology would it be? So you'd want to have your fundamentals for sure to take the astrocartography. And in fact, I would think that you would want to have even intermediate astromapping in order to take that course. So it's not one that you would just jump into unless you had some background there.
Donna, do we have a list of what is taught of the specific things of each week of each of the fundamental courses, so they know?
Each week, I don't think we have each week, but
it would be a nice list.
Yeah.
I added that to be updated on the product listing for 103, but I don't know if that update has gone through. But if anybody wants to reach out and find me through the ethers, I don't remember what my Kepler email address is, but if you write to somebody at Kepler, I'm happy to email you what that list is.
And that will be updated very quickly. Yeah. In regards to required books, are we supposed to buy the books off of Amazon? You can buy them anywhere. Wherever you can find them, you can purchase them, but lots of them are available on Amazon for sure. But and I think we have an affiliate with Amazon, so if you do buy it through Amazon, we get a little bit of kickback for that. So if you follow our links, then that helps us out a little bit, but it doesn't matter where you buy them as long as you have them. Do we have any courses focusing on Dane Ruger's work? I'm going to say not
certainly with the moon phases, and we use several of his books or articles.
Yeah. So it's kind of immersed, it's kind of like we were talking about how in the fundamental certificate, we're borrowing from all kinds of traditions. So you're going to find his work throughout, but there's not one class that's focused on.
Well, and there's a website on, I don't know what it's called, I think caldera.com or something, but it's all of his works are available in the public domain on that website. So you can read him on your own, and there's lectures there, I believe, as well. So, because whoever was working with his estate decided to put everything that they got on the internet. So if you're really into Dane Rudyard, just look that up, and that's really the storehouse.
Mm-hmm. Are there required textbooks? There is a list of required textbooks on our website. So yes, each class has got some different textbooks that are required. In the fundamental certificate, we're really trying to do a little bit of library building too. So we're starting with some basic books in 101, in 102, you're adding a couple of books. In 103, you're adding a couple of books. So you're going through like that. So each class is going to have its own required books. Question about the advanced pricing. I think if you got an email that said that the advanced pricing ends today, that was a mistake. The advanced pricing ends next week. So you've got a week to finish that up. And somebody is asking about why we don't have an academic institution status. So when Kepler was first formed, it did have degree granting status, but it wasn't, oh, I've lost the word. What's
I
the
can
word?
tell the story
Audited. Yeah, tell the story, Carol.
because I was part of that.
Yeah.
The Kepler College got the authorization for a degree granting college based upon a full curriculum, with literature, with science, with everything, not just astrology. And the director of Washington State was retiring. And so she just, took our application and just, threw it at the wall, and we got authorization to be a full, liberal arts college. Well, we didn't have all of the liberal arts, so we had difficulty getting accredited. We were authorized, but accreditation is important. And so, with a staff of maybe 8 people, we couldn't cover all of the bases to get accredited.
Yeah. So then we switched to vocational in 2010. And we've been going, just adding and adding and adding to that ever since.
And I will have to say, the scarlet letter was against us. The A word scared them away.
Astrology. Yeah. They didn't want us to use the word astrology.
That's right.
So that was no deal as well.
Well,
Here are,
I'm in hope with Alex that will shift with the shifting attitudes towards astrology and culture.
I hope so too, yeah. So we do have a couple of free courses you can take, Babylonian mathematics, and there's a free introduction. So if you don't know the basics of, if you don't know your glyphs, because if you're going to be going into 101, there is kind of an expectation that you would at least have your glyphs memorized and planetary order. There's a couple of things that would be, you can take 101 without them, but it would be hard. So at least memorize your glyphs. You can take that free course to do that. And then the quiz that you can take to find out where you land. All free offerings that we have. Here's some classes that we have coming up. The Aries Ingress, I think I mentioned earlier on. If you came into this class thinking that this was going to immediately follow in this link, that would not be correct. You have to actually sign up for that separately, and I will post that in the chat again for those of you who came in a little bit later. So if you want to sign up for that, please do that. It's a separate web or Zoom link. And then of course, we've got some other great community webinars free coming up that you do not want to miss. I won't read through all of them. You can click through and find those yourself.
If you guys haven't met Rhonda, you have to take Rhonda's software class. She's so cool. I really, really love that.
Yeah.
Like, she's the coolest.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see her on the menu.
Very good. Yeah, she's very good at explaining the software. And we have this workshop coming up right away, explaining the 8th and 12th houses, our favorite houses, our mysterious ones. We're going to be doing a live stream. This is a fun thing. I don't think we've ever done a live stream, but we're going to be doing this during the eclipse and going to different places where the eclipse is happening. So watch for that. That'll be a fun thing that we're doing on April 8th during the eclipse. And we also have a book club. So this is really a new thing that we've had going on at Kepler College that's proven to be quite popular. Each month there's a different book that you can read or not read. And where possible, we try to bring in the author or an expert on the subject. In this case, we're actually having 2 people that are going to be doing a Q&A on the 29th. Maya is one of our instructors that is in the astrocartography certificate, and Kenneth Irving finished up Jim Lewis's book on the psychology of astrocartography. So that is kind of a fun one to do. And of course, this is all free on Facebook. So if you want to join that club, that is great. And Toastmasters, as Carol was talking about, we have a KeplerCollege Toastmasters group that is really, really growing. And you don't have to be a KeplerCollege student to take this. Anybody can join. The goal, of course, is for you to learn to be a better presenter. If you have any desire to present at conferences or even to teach or even to be interacting with clients, learning how to speak on your feet is a really good thing to build. So if you're interested in that, you are welcome to attend as a guest to check it out. We have weekly meetings at 11:30 Pacific, and you can email officers 7978057 @toastmastersclubs.org if you would like to be invited to that. There's also a Uranian astrology group, and this one is expecting you to have some understanding of the Uranian astrology that meets once a month. Both of these you can sign up for on our website. If you already know you want to jump in, you can just go right to the website and sign in. And actually, for any of you that are Toastmasters, I'm just going to back up a bit here. If you complete a pathway in Toastmasters, this will also count as a credit for your professional development certificate, or, you know, ultimately on your diploma. There we go for more information. Now, I'm going to step away from here for a second because I did want to get to the question about where we would find our electives. Oh, there's some other questions in here. Should we start collecting our friends' charts? You absolutely should. Is relationship astrology only covered by electives and this specialization in the advanced diploma, or is there a main part? We are working on a diploma in relationship astrology, or not a diploma, a certificate in relationship astrology. So yeah, it's only covered by electives. I guess that's at the moment, it's only covered by electives, but we are hoping to flesh that out a little bit so that it is its own certificate. Pricing for the diploma programs, another great question. So all of our 5-week classes are $295 US. All of our 10-week classes are $590 US. And so that, you know, that of course, we're not going to guarantee that those are the prices forever, but basically that's what the price is for our courses. All right.
There are workshops that they can get for a lower rate, but you can't get credit toward a diploma or a certificate for a workshop.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Great questions. I think this is the longest open house we've ever done with all the questions. I'm just going to our website now, and I'll share my screen again in a jiffy here. And this will address the question of the electives. Okay, so here is our website. And if you scroll down, you can see the courses that are coming right up. But if you scroll down to the bottom, there is a section here that says calendar. Oh, well, that wasn't quite right. I'm sorry, I lied to you. That's not where you want to go. You want to go to certificate catalog. Certificate catalog, and then view our planning calendar. And when you go there, it will take you to, it's a Trello board, but it'll give you some ideas. Here, if you click on diploma requirements, you'll see everything that we talked about today. What are the classes that are required, etc. And then each of the different certificates that are available. So here you will see what is it that I need for the fundamental certificate as an example, if you open these up. Within here, each of the classes that's being offered has a little bit of a description as well. And when you go over to the terms, you can see the planning for what's coming up. So these are the classes that are being offered right now. In the spring term, you can just scroll down. And again, you can open up here and see what does Alex have to say. So Alex has, in her case, what's going on each week, the required books, etc. And you can see when the classes are going to be offered again. So we imagine, like I said, that this will be recurring with some minor modifications, but for the most part, you could plan out your entire pathway by looking at this calendar. And really, if you look at all of the courses here, when we talk about electives, you can take any of the courses. Now, obviously, the ones that are required are going to be required, but if you wanted to use astromapping as an elective, you could. If you wanted to use working with parents and children, you could. Any of the classes that are in this list that are not a part of the regular diploma would be considered electives. So, and I would say in addition to that, if you learned a specialty technique from some other school that had some rigor to it, where you were being tested and evaluated, you could use those courses as well, but you'd have to have permission. So you could just write to the registrar and ask your course applied. I think I've covered all the questions that were in the chat box. Have I missed anything? No. All right. Well, thank you for all of your time. And we look forward to seeing many of you in our classes this spring. Oh, is there another question that just popped up? No, just a comment. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you begin your journey with us too. So yeah, we're looking forward to you. If you're going to be in 101 next term, Vanessa and I will see you in a few weeks.
You in class.
102 and 103 are here as well. Happy to see you.
That's right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.